Change your heart, change your life, change the planet.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Van Orden coming to you from the Blue Trail on the north end of Bald Mountain in Bennington, Vermont. I'm running through the Glastonbury Wilderness and having lots of thoughts about how I got to this location today. And I thought I would make two videos in one. I'm going to start out with a tip video, and then I'm going to expand that into a much larger conversation, which will get posted on my other channel, A Mind in Motion, as I really unpack and go into tangential nuances of that conversation. So the tip today is that if you can't get yourself into action, if the action is too big, that action is for the wrong person. That action is not for you. And this goes back to tool number 2, which was start who you are. What I mean is that we have a lens that we experience the world through. It's called consciousness. And consciousness is not a direct representation of physical reality around us, social reality around us, nor even of our own physical states and experience or history. Consciousness is a very convenient lens. It takes data about our body, it takes data about our felt state or affect, as psychologists call it, and it takes that data and maps it onto the world. When I woke up this morning, I was really, really tired. I've been training on average 2 hours a day. I'm doing probably 4 hours of farm work a day, really hard, intensive labor, planting, pruning, mowing, tilling, cutting and dragging trees, etc. So, and then there's the cognitive work that I'm doing, the writing and the research and the editing, and transcribing, etc. It's exhausting. So when I woke up this morning, I was like, my consciousness took a mental inventory, took a physical inventory, looked at the world and said, I'm not big enough for that world. I'm not big enough for that task. So therefore, don't engage. Don't engage in the guy that you've been. Don't engage in the goals that you've set, because you're going to fail. And it's right. So even though consciousness can make mistakes, it doesn't make them in the way that we think. Consciousness only becomes problematic when we hold on to the belief that we do have to engage in that goal right now in this state as this person from this perspective. So what you do instead of giving up, you give in and you say, okay, this experience, this inventory, this assessment, this perspective in this moment allows me this much activity. So rather than saying that, oh man, I'm the guy who runs up mountains every day, I say, I'm the guy who's capable of getting dressed right now. So rather than looking at the big picture, I look at what can I do? What did my conscious inventory and then created perspective, what wiggle room did it give me? Did it give me enough wiggle room to get dressed? It did. Am I excited about that? No, but I can do it. And I did. Okay, can you make a smoothie? Yeah, I got some wiggle room in there for a smoothie. So I made one, and I did it, and I drank it slowly, and I made it yummy. I didn't make it the most nutritious smoothie in the world. I made it decently nutritious, adequately nutritious, and also flavorful, so it didn't empty that tank any further. But now I've got two things that I've accomplished, so actually my gas tank's getting a little bigger. My sense of self-efficacy is starting to grow a little bit. My lens is widening, and I can see myself in more of the world. And that's really what consciousness is. How much of the world is it going to allow you to interact with? It's your lens. Are you zoomed in tight, or do you have a wide angle perspective? And the more you engage, the more you develop that sense of efficacy, the wider the angle opens up and the fewer things in your life become a threat. And I'm now back to the summit of the mountain. And this is a view, I don't know if you can see it down there, is Mount Greylock in Massachusetts. That's the highest mountain in Massachusetts. And over there, I don't know if you can see them, but Catskill Mountains in New York. And this trail behind me heads down into Woodford. But I'm gonna go this way into Bennington. And we're gonna start dropping 2,200 feet now. All right, so this conscious lens, if you apply it to what it has deemed appropriate, you'll be able to take steps. So if you find that you can't take the step that you had hoped to take, that you had committed to take, or as Tony Robbins and many others would tell you, write down your goals the night before and then wake up and look at them and then act on them. Well, the person that wrote those goals, or should I say the perspective, the conscious lens that wrote those goals, or that saw those goals as exciting and doable, that's not the conscious lens that you're waking up inside of. You're still you, but you're you with a different perspective. You're you with a different physical and mental inventory, and therefore a different length of leash. All right? And when we stretch that leash too far, it snaps us back. And a tendon is something that stretches. The word tend means to stretch towards. So a tendency are the things that you get yanked back towards if you try to stretch too far away from your center, from your perspective. So if you find yourself unable to take a step inside of a goal, well, then that step is not for you. That step is for a different version of you, a different perspective of you. So make it smaller. If you can't take that step, it's still not for you. Make it smaller until eventually you'll find a size of step that you can take. And then you'll find another size of step that you can take, and you'll build momentum. And then that lens is going to widen and widen and widen, because now you're getting new information. The guy that woke up in bed, he didn't have much information. He simply had a groggy state, lying in bed, inactive. He didn't have any data coming in that said that he's capable or competent. The only data he had was the physical inventory that his consciousness assessed. But now that I'm moving in the world, I have new information to incorporate into that model, into that perspective. And that allows that lens to widen as that new data is factored in. So if you can't do something, make it smaller. So I got dressed, made my smoothie, got in the car. Where are you going? I don't know. Mount Anthony? Something about Mount Anthony doesn't feel exciting to me. Probably because I've just been there and the trails are really steep, and I didn't feel like steep. That was more than my perspective was allowing for. All right, well, I did Kelly stand yesterday. That's all uphill, I don't know. So I needed something that my brain didn't have a picture of already. It didn't have recent experience of that it was going to be afraid of. And the Blue Trail here on Bald Mountain, it starts right in town. And I rarely do it. And I'm not sure why that is, but I rarely do it. And because I rarely do it, I didn't have any recent experiences to process, to say, oh yeah, that's too much. All I had was, oh, there's a trailhead there, and yeah, it's Bald Mountain. But I didn't have a lot of data to use to deter me, to trigger my sense of, not capable of that. So I found myself at the trailhead, got out the door, started my watch, and I started walking. Okay, I'm on the trail, I'm moving. More data coming in. Okay, he's capable, he's moving. And little by little, I started going along the trail, feeling better, and then I found myself running. It wasn't a conscious choice. I didn't say, okay, you need to start running now in order for this workout to count. It just happened. I felt, or my consciousness suddenly gave me access to the running module, and I found myself running. And I wasn't running fast, but that started growing. And I didn't know how far I was going to go. because I didn't have that image in my head of this particular trail and where it goes. I was just moving on the trail with kind of this fog in front of me, like a fog of war. You don't know what's in the future. You just move towards it carefully inside of a lens, always on guard and always tuning in, and then moving within the range that your consciousness feels is appropriate, stretching just a little bit at a time. And before you know it, I'm moving faster. And then I get to a really steep section, and without consciously choosing it, I felt myself accelerate. And my body was just playing. My body was doing what my body was doing. I wasn't telling it. I wasn't commanding it. I wasn't willing it. I was just letting it play, and it wanted to run fast. And if you get out of your own way, and if you stop telling yourself what you have to do and what you need to do, or what you should do, or what you wrote last night on a schedule, or what you wrote last month for your running plan because your coach said this is what you're going to do a month from now on this day. Wow, I don't even know who I'm going to be in the morning. How could I possibly know who I'm going to be a month from now? Because they're not factoring in the variability of this conscious lens. So I found myself running up a steep section, and I wasn't getting tired, and that excited me. So I started pushing, and I wasn't getting tired, and I felt my leg strength increase, not decreased. And that was even more exciting. And now suddenly my conscious lens is like, whoosh, it's wide open. And it says, oh, there you are. There's the body. There's the person that I knew was in there. But the person that I woke up as didn't think that was possible. He didn't feel like that person. That person's there. And you're always more capable than you realize in your toughest moments. Now, in your best moments, you might be right at the limit of what you're capable of. And some people make the mistake of trying to go beyond that limit. And really, pushing limits is not about being at peak and then redlining and blowing the engine. Pushing limits is about waking up with only this much wiggle room and then pushing it until, boom, it opens up into full potential. And that's what I experienced on this run today. I got access to my full potential, and as the run went on and the steeps kept going, I powered up every steep. I was flying, I was bounding up 35 to 40% slopes and feeling really strong. And when I noticed my breathing was constricted in my chest, I said, ooh, there's my next thing to focus on. Expand that chest, relax your breathing, open up your diaphragm, breathe into your lower back. And suddenly I had even more oxygen, and I increased my speed further until I'm flying over the top of the mountain and down the other side, and ran for 4.5 miles before I decided to turn around. So this is going to be a 9-mile workout, but it didn't start out as a 9-mile workout. It started out as a guy in bed who felt like crap, who really didn't think he was capable of anything big. And he wasn't. That guy wasn't. So I started who I was. I didn't start as the person I thought I needed to be, or as the person that I should be, or as the person that I committed to be. I started who I was. And as that guy approached the world, I looked at the step in front of me. Can I take it, or is it too big? If I can't take it, make it smaller. And keep making it smaller until it's a step that you can take. To dig into this further, I want to talk about expectations versus inspectations. So we have an expectation of who I should be, what I should do, how I should feel, especially if I'm on a specific diet. If I'm on a vegan diet, or if I'm on a raw vegan diet, well, then I better feel good all the time. And if I don't, what's wrong? And many of you who have been on this journey for a long time, you'll remember some rather vocal figures in the movement who would tell you that if you don't feel great, it's your fault, not the diet's fault. And there's a tiny, tiny bit of truth to that, but not in the way that they meant. And the truth is that it's not your fault, it's your default. And that we assume that we're always the same person. We assume that there is a consistency of identity, of belief, of morality that we have throughout the day. But if you actually look at people's behavior, that's not what you see at all. You see these huge fluctuations throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. Many women experience this in a very dramatic way with their menstrual cycle. Not all women, but some do. But even throughout the day, every human being experiences a circadian rhythm where you wake up with a peak of cortisol in your system and orexin. So you've got your chemicals spiked. And for most people, this is around 7 in the morning. And cortisol, orexin, maybe even a little norepinephrine in your system makes you very alert, makes you vigilant. And the morning is therefore your peak time of day for cognitive function, for alertness. If you need to really tackle something big and demanding, the morning is the best time to do it. But not immediately in the morning. You got to give yourself a few hours to do what I went through today and allow my conscious lens, my conscious perspective to widen slowly, to open up slowly so that I can find my full potential and then really hammer that peak. Which is why I always wake up at least 3 hours prior to a race. And I eat and I move my body so that by the time the race comes around, I'm ready to take advantage of that peak because I've slowly widened my perspective, my conscious lens. So in this circadian rhythm after the peak, we have a trough, we have a down cycle. And for most people, this happens between 2 and 4 p.m., which is commonly why people take siestas or afternoon naps in many parts of the world. And it's why what you eat for lunch is really, really crucial to how you perform the rest of the day. As Benjamin Franklin said in his autobiography, one of the reasons that he was so successful is that he ate a vegetarian meal for lunch, where all of his peers were eating standard fare. And you know, back then we didn't have the chemical additives and junk food that we have today, but even Ben Franklin saw the difference between eating light vegetarian fare and standard fare and how it affected people in their afternoon trough. And then he said he would just run circles around other people, and that's when he had most of his business successes. When he was not fully alert because he was still in a trough, but his trough wasn't as deep as everyone else's. And then around, say, 6 to 8:30 p.m., we have our second peak. It's not as strong as our first peak in the morning, but it's another spike in cortisol, and that wakes us up, and you'll find people that are really productive at night. And then you have people that are night owls, or owls as they call them in sleep research, and then you have larks. Larks are the people that are more alert in the morning. Owls are generally more alert at night. Their peak is more powerful at night than it is in the morning. And we're still not sure if this is fully genetic or if this is just habitual learning, that they have learned to be affected in this way. But you may find that you're an owl and that your second peak is more powerful than your first. Generally, I'm not a person that's super excited to work out in the morning ever. And I do find myself working pretty late at night with most of my writing and research. That's where I do my most intense thinking. So I may be an owl, but I can engage myself like I did today. And even though I'm not raring to go in the morning, I can slowly, gradually open myself up and get the ball rolling, get the flywheel turning, and have a very powerful morning, even if I'm never immediately excited to do so. As my grandfather used to say to me, when I was a kid because he would sleep in my room whenever he came to visit. He'd start screaming at me at like 6 in the morning. Get out of bed! Sun's gonna burn a hole in your ass! And yeah, I was never all too excited to just jump out of bed and to be immediately thrust into whatever activity he had set for the day. And I think a lot of people in the military probably struggle with this as well. That's get up, an alarm goes off, there's an alarming state. Your conscious lens is like, oh, this is what I'm capable of, but then you're forced to quickly go beyond what you're capable of. And I think that leads to a lot of burnout. I think that leads to adrenal fatigue. I think that leads to all kinds of psychological issues. And if people were given the option to warm up slowly, that doesn't mean that we're going to avoid the work that has to be done. It just means that we're going to have a more gentle approach. I think you'd have people that are much more psychologically healthy, much more physically healthy, and that the activities that they engage in would be more sustainable and lifelong, rather than something that they need to get all pumped up or do drugs or get amped in order to continue, or they need to get all jacked on testosterone and get into like a, you know, the macho rage where everybody just starts yelling at each other to get testosterone engaged. I don't do that. My workouts are incredibly gentle and yet incredibly powerful when I allow myself to enter into them in a compassionate way, in a very gentle way, starting out who I am and where I am. This guy, the who that's showing up, he's committed to movement. He's committed to expansion more than he's committed to a particular goal. So my goal really is that of expansion. I don't know what's possible. I don't know what I'll end up doing, but I have enough practice and enough experience to know that if I start compassionately and if I start engaging myself gently, that I'll do extraordinary things. Like running up this mountain on a day where I was waking up in a very deep depression. And I didn't need medication. I didn't need cat videos on YouTube. I didn't need anybody to cheer me up. I didn't need to lean on anybody. I simply needed to allow myself to start as I am, who I am. And the who, or the perspective that I am, was one of, I'm depressed. I really don't feel like I can do much. I really don't feel like I am much. And rather than comparing that person to the person I should be, or to the person that everybody thinks I am, oh my God, Tim is just so disciplined and willpowered. He's such an inspiration. I'm not disciplined. I'm not willpowered. Willpowered? No, that's a great word. I love that. I am not willpowered. I am chill-powered. I am walking on the edge of the White Rocks, these big quartz outcroppings, cliffs, overlooking Bennington. Let me get my face out of there so you can see. So these are the White Rocks. And when you're in Bennington, you can see them as you, whoa! It's just a short drop. So again, you're going to keep hearing me say that it doesn't take willpower, because willpower is only applicable if you believe yourself to be something other than you are. And you believe yourself to be something that never changes. That there is a fixed identity. There is a fixed version of you that you cannot deviate from. And if you do deviate from it, there will be consequences. There will be punishments, often delivered by you. You're going to tear yourself to pieces. You're going to be cruel. You're going to deprive yourself of certain things, beat yourself up. You're going to sabotage yourself. You're going to binge on certain foods just to show you, oh, you want to do that? Well, I'm going to punish you. So we engage in all these reactive tendencies as that tendon gets stretched too far, as the leash gets stretched too far, and we get yanked back into who we tend to be. And who we tend to be varies depending on the lens that we're viewing ourselves and the world through. It's really what consciousness is. It's an assessment of me, and then looking outside and saying, okay, how much of me is safe to utilize, or safe to express, or safe to reveal? Right now, I don't think very much at all. I think if I go out there and I try to compete, if I go out there in the real world, I think I'm going to get killed or destroyed somehow. So let's play small. And great, let's do that. Let's play small, but let's play. That's the important thing here. Often what people do is they feel their consciousness pulling them towards let's play small, and then they have this image of who they need to be, who they should be, who they're supposed to be, and those two can't be reconciled, so they don't play at all. They just give up. Or they try to force themselves, and it doesn't work. They're angry, they're taking out their frustrations on other people, they're violent, they're on drugs and alcohol and other types of medicative agents to try to keep that consistent. I have to be this person. These tiny little steps that are being suggested to, they're beneath me. Yep, and that's exactly why they work, because they're beneath your feet. And if you start walking on the ground that's beneath your feet, you can go places. But if you try to walk on ground that's only in a fantasy of who you should be, then you're going to keep tripping and falling and yelling and blaming and fighting the world. Because you're not actually walking on the ground right here. You're not starting where you are. And you're not starting who you are. In fact, what you're doing is stopping who you are. You're saying, who I am right now is not acceptable, not okay. And I don't care what they're capable of 45 minutes from now or an hour from now. They need to be capable of that right now. I demand it. And if it takes 5 cups of coffee to bring that person out, well, then that's what it takes. But 5 cups of coffee doesn't bring that person out. It just irritates you. It agitates you. It doesn't bring out your strength. It just makes you alert and irritable. So I hope there's some value in there for you as you engage in your day, as you engage in your being. Rather than simply seeing it as a day outside of you, see it as a day inside of you. And that day is broken up into many, many different frames, just like a movie. And what is the perspective of this frame right here? Or in the acting world, what is this beat? And a beat is like in music, where it's boom, boom, boom. In acting, it's beat, a beat, a beat. A moment of action, a perspective. A moment of action, perspective. So what is happening in this beat right here? This beat of your heart, this beat of your life, this beat of your consciousness. What is it telling you is appropriate? And what is it telling you you're capable of? Find out. All right? If there's value in there for you, leave some comments. If you like this video, let me know. Like it. Subscribe to this channel. Let's build up the subscriber base here, and maybe at one point I'll be able to monetize it. And if you want to support more content like this, come on over to Patreon, and for $1 or $2 a month, you help me do more of this. And I really appreciate your support. Okay, I'm gonna run the rest of the way. See ya.